Hey there. Welcome into the Ben Maynard program. Thanks for being here. Running behind schedule. But before we get started, um, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. How's that? Take care of some business first. Um, as you know, this program is available on all streaming platforms. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search the Ben Maynard program and you'll find it. There it is. Go with it. And if you can, just subscribe to it. You'll get notifications as new episodes post. Um, if you're watching on YouTube right here because you can't resist this, some of this right here, then thank you so much for doing that. I greatly appreciate it. Just a couple things that I ask: subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Again, you'll get notified whenever a new episode is posted, and it's all good. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. I dig the comments. You know, I read them, I respond to them. And so, yeah, so please do that. I'm just looking for some more subscribers. I really, really would like to get to 500 subscribers. It's a tall task right now, but you know, you can't get if you don't ask. So tell all your family and friends to subscribe to the Ben Maynard program. Last but not least, follow me on Instagram, simply Ben Maynard program, all one word. So with that, plenty of ways to take in this show for your dancing and listening pleasure. And what we have going on this episode, let's put the spectacles on here. It's been 40 years. It's crazy. Oh, let me get my mouse here. Let's do this. Let's get the banner up. And it is right there. Boom. All right. Now, I hope you guys see that banner and my name in blue because it is not showing in blue on my side. But I know from last week's episode, it was showing in black. And when I went back and watched the train wreck, we're not even going to get into it. We got a Friday Night Live coming up. We'll talk all about that stuff. But everything was in blue. So I don't know what's going on with StreamYard. They seem to have done some updates and things get changed around and I don't even know about it. But nonetheless, 1985 was 40 years ago. Where has the time gone? Man, I was, well, at this time in 1985, I was 19 years old. So I was just a kid. But man, we did this last year and we're doing it again this year. I love it. We're going to go over some albums that are turning 40 this year. Actually, I think a couple of them on the list that I put together have already turned 40. But I just picked these out. It was no okay, two of them, but we'll get to that later. Two of them are here for a specific reason. And the rest of them, there's no rhyme or reason as to why I picked them out. I just did. I think that they are either big albums in an artist's catalog or there's just some significance to them. And that's why they're on the list. I don't know. I got a whole bunch of notes here. We'll see how it all plays out, right? But in 1985, I mean, so many important albums. Some of them, like I said, were even monumental to an artist, a band. But there's so many, just too many to even mention. That's why I think I cut it down to 15. But we'll discuss some of the huge albums turning 40 this year. So here we go. Oh, and one thing to take note in this as well. MTV was huge at this time, huge in 1985. MTV had really hit their stride 4 years in, and you know, if you go 40 years back from when we're doing this episode tonight, they weren't even 4 years old. but they had their 4th anniversary. I believe it was August 1st in 1985. And so on their 4th year, they are really in stride, hitting it hard with great music videos, great segments. The VJs were outstanding, great guest VJs, breaking news in the music world, all kinds of good stuff. If you, I mean, besides reading the music magazines, Hit Parader or Circus, or gosh, I don't even remember if they were still out in '85. You had to go to MTV to get your music news. So the MTV was so influential and so huge, and really, I think for some of these albums here, the bands that we'll discuss tonight, you'll see that MTV had a lot to say. Anyway, so let's just jump right in. As I said, no particular order. Just going to go with it. And instead of digging into my albums and CDs, which I really didn't feel like doing, I printed out the cover of each of the albums. So, and actually, I think I forgot one. I do. I think I forgot one. We'll get into it. Anyway, so number one, turning 40 in 1985 is right there. Motley Crue, as I knock my water over. Motley Crue's Theater of Pain. I'm just holding it up to the camera just for a few seconds, okay? So Theater of Pain. I forgot to write down the release date for this one, but obviously it did come out in 1985. This was the follow-up to their big breakthrough in 1983, which was Shout at the Devil. The album itself is not a huge favorite among the band members these days. However, the album did have a lot of success. It reached number 6 on the Billboard Top 200 album chart. And, Billboard's got a bunch of charts out there. The ones that we focus on a lot here are the Billboard Hot 100 or the Top 40. And the Billboard Top 200, which is the Top 200, that's the album chart. Okay, so Theater of Pain reached number 6 on the Billboard Top 200 chart. It sold over 4 million copies just in the U.S. alone. So even though the band may not care for it, it was incredibly successful, bigger than their previous album. It had 2 hit songs on it, 2 hit singles, a cover of the Brownsville Station, Smoking in the Boys' Room. That was the big video that played on MTV. And so I think MTV was a driver in that as well. Of course, Motley Crue fans were amped up to get something new from the band coming off of 1983 and Shout at the Devil. This one took a little bit of a turn from that album, and it kind of turned off some fans too. But nonetheless, it was mighty successful. The second single and another big MTV video was Home Sweet Home. So there's the first one, turning 40 this year, 1985. Number 2, we've got Aerosmith, Done with Mirrors. Okay. Again, I was just putting this show together this afternoon, so I forgot to write the release date on that. But this one is the 8th album in the Aerosmith catalog. It's the return of Brad Whitford and Joe Perry to the band after about a 5-year absence. They both left in about 1980, right after Night in the Ruts was released. There were no real hits on the album. It commercially, it wasn't well received. Critically, it got good reviews. But more important in the band's history, because more importantly than the success of it or critical acclaim or whatever, it began what was the band's comeback at that time, which that comeback included some of the biggest albums in their history. Geez, what was that? Permanent Vacation. I think there was Pump and Get a Grip. Those three back to back to back. I didn't look at the stats on those, but those probably are the biggest three albums in their catalog. Huge, huge albums. This began that run and put Aerosmith back on the map. Of course, they had the big song and video with Run DMC, Walk This Way. That was a year after this one was released. That was in 1986. And, again, big video, MTV. Boom. There you go. All this kind of together launched the comeback of Aerosmith because they were kind of down and out at that point. But yeah. So then let's move to the next one on the list. Put these things back on. Phil Collins, No Jacket Required. This one is Phil's third solo album. It was released on February 18th in 1985. You know what? We know we're talking 1985 here. We know we're talking 40 years later. So I'm going to give the month and the date. I'm not going to give the year every time out. It's just silly. This one had 5 singles: Susudio, One More Night, Don't Lose My Number, Who Said I Said, and Take Me Home. Huge radio play for this album. Huge MTV play for this album. One of the best-selling albums of the 80s and one of the best-selling albums all time. It has to this date sold over 25 million copies worldwide. So absolutely huge. Obviously, Phil Collins' biggest solo album amongst, I think he has like 8 of them, 8 or 9, something like that. I don't recall. But his biggest, the thing's just enormous. And a great album too. Just a great, great, great album. Really, really is. And I mentioned a few episodes back when Spaz was in studio with me when we were talking about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominees. We went over snubs, and Phil Collins was one of those snubs that we discussed. Absolutely a snub for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, if you just took his solo career by itself, Phil Collins should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But then you put together Genesis and all that, it's hands down. So get your heads out of your rear ends, nominating committee. Let's get it done. Okay, moving on. Moving on to the next. Well, let's take them one at a time, Holmes. All right. This one right here, you may or may not be able to get a good look at it, but this is the self-titled album from 1985 by Heart. Apparently, Heart couldn't come up with a better name for the album. I read somewhere that Ann Wilson had said something to the effect that since they didn't do a lot of the songwriting themselves, they felt like there was nothing that they could grab a hold of to give to the title of the album. I don't know. That's her, not me, but whatever. The album, it's Heart's 8th studio album. It was released on June 21st. 5 singles were released: These Dreams, What About Love, Never, Nothing at All, and If Looks Could Kill. Now, the first 4, they all reached the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album itself reached number 1. It's the biggest selling album in the Heart catalog, and it's sold over 6 million copies worldwide. So it's an absolutely huge album. And there are times, the band has come a little, I shouldn't say the band, I should say Ann and Nancy have come around to this album more in the last 10 to 15 years. There was a period of time where they kind of almost hated this album. And a lot of it had to do with, the fact that they did not write a lot of the songs on the album. They did have some songwriting credits on the album, but from what I recall, it wasn't even on the big songs. Not only that, we're talking about that mid 80s look. The girls were all, turned into sex objects, poofed up hair, short skirts. They had all that, I don't know, frilly stuff and whatever. It kind of had the band almost kind of had a colonial look to them without the hats. But I know that the Wilson sisters were not crazy about all that, but they were kind of kowtowing to management, record label, whatever it might have been at the time, being that they were on a bit of, I won't say a downturn in their career, but certainly they weren't at the level of success that they had in the mid to late 70s. So the early 80s was a little bit tough for them. And look, somebody made the right call. Somebody made the right call on it. But bottom line was Ann and Nancy and their band made these songs absolutely phenomenal. So it's a great album. Great album. Does it have a little bit of an 80s sound to it? Well, of course. But I think not only is it the biggest selling album in their catalog, but to me, it's my favorite. It's my favorite. So, and I know a lot of hardcore Heart fans are going to be like, you're an idiot, dude. No, it's Dreamboat Annie or, something else. But I really, really like this album. So it's a good one. It's definitely a good one. Next, number 5. I think we have 15. So we got number 5 right here. That would be John Fogerty's Center Field. Now, this was kind of like, this was John's return after a 10-year absence from the music business. The last album he had released was in 1975. And John definitely makes a triumphant comeback with this one here. John played all the instruments, and it speaks to his talents on the album. It had 3 singles released to radio, solid radio hits. I think the first one released was The Old Man Down the Road. That was another big MTV song. Follow up to that was Rock and Roll Girls, another big MTV song too. And then the third one was the title track. Great song, great baseball song. Every time you hear that song, you just want to get out, run out onto the ball field and, play some catch, hit some balls around, whatever it is. It's such a good song. It was a huge album, sold over 2 million copies in the US alone, and peaking at number 1 on the Billboard top 200 chart. So good on you, John Fogerty. And, John still sounds great to this day. So forget about anyone else performing those Creedence songs. If you want to hear Creedence Clearwater Revival, you go see John Fogerty. He's the one that wrote the songs. He's the one that sings the songs and does a great job. He still sounds great to this day. So, yes, good on you again, John. Next one. Let's turn this over. Next one here. All right. Wet the fingertips here. John Cougar Mellencamp's Scarecrow. Released July 31st. It's John's 8th studio album. A lot of people don't remember that. They don't even realize that. John was releasing music in the 70s as John Cougar. And but this was one of his best and best-selling albums. It's sold more than 6 million copies worldwide. It had 3 top 10 hits. Let me see. Small Town, Lonely Old Night, and ROCK in the USA. I think this one is my favorite. John, well, I don't know. The one prior. Yeah, was the one prior to that. Was a good one too. I really did like that one. That's the one with pink houses and um, gosh, what else? Oh, the Authority song and can't even recall. Oh, crumbling down or tumbling down. One of the two. It's when your walls come tumbling down, you know. Um, but this is a great album, and I love the title track. The title track, well, it's really not the title track. It's the title of the song is "Rain on the Scarecrow," but you can sort of call it the title track. It's a really dark song with but it's an impassioned plea on behalf of the small farmers of America. Just such a good song, such I don't know, profound lyrics. Great stuff. Great stuff. So it's a great album. Like I said, it's the best selling one in the John Cougar. Actually, I'm sorry, the John Mellencamp, because after this album, he went back to his name, John Mellencamp. He took the full Mellencamp name back. Because if you remember early on in his career, and if you don't remember, I'm going to let you know, he was John Cougar. Had it started to break out and have his huge success. That was with the American Fool album, and the following album, he wanted to get rid of the Cougar. He always hated that. Well, they compromised. He releases the album John Cougar Mellencamp, and then this one here, Scarecrow, released it under John Cougar Mellencamp, but that was the last one. Got his real name back fully after that. So good stuff from John. Next one on the list is Rat, Invasion of Your Privacy. This one is Rat's. It's their follow up to the debut album. So it's their second album, released on May 30th. 3 singles were released, with the big ones being "Lay It Down" and "Your Love." Also, big videos on MTV, huge videos, selling over 2 million copies in the US alone, and then peaking at number 2 on the Billboard Top 200 album chart. This one solidified Rat as a legitimate 80s hard rock band. Great stuff, great band, Love Rat. All right. Oh, the next one. Yeah, this one I messed up on. I forgot to print the album cover. This one is Sting, Dream of the Blue Turtles. And this is Sting's debut solo album coming off the breakup of the Police. If you love somebody, set them free. Fortress Around Your Heart, Russians, Moon Over Bourbon Street, and Love is the Seventh Wave were the 5 singles. And then while peaking at number 2 on the top 200, it sold more than 5 million copies worldwide. So I didn't go through the Sting catalog to see where this one sits, but I would imagine that among his solo albums, this debut is right up there with the best ones, with the highest number of sales. So I just remember that the opening song, or the opening line on the first single released, "If You Love Somebody, Set Them Free." It almost sounds like Elmer Fudd singing. It almost sounds like he's saying, "Fui, fui, set them free." Go back and listen to it. You'll never hear the song the same again. I promise. I promise. Let's see. What else do we got here? What else do we got? All right. This one, right. Come on, get them together. There we go. Right here. AC/DC's Fly on the Wall. Released June 28th. Not the same success, of course, as Back in Black, or For Those About to Rock. Hard to get hard to get the same success of Back in Black. That one's one of the biggest selling albums worldwide of all time. But even For Those About to Rock sold over 4 million copies. But the band seemed to stumble a little bit for the second release in a row with this one here, Fly on the Wall. It still sold 2 million copies worldwide, but most fans find that it's not quite up to snuff with most of the catalog. But, for AC/DC, those guys, they could fall out of bed and still sell 1 million records. So, what are you going to do? There's the big songs on it, I think, were Sink the Pink, and I forgot what else. Darn it. But they would start to hit their stride a little bit more in the back half of the 80s, early 90s. Next one, Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms. And I'll hold that up there for a second or two. I'm going to tell you something. Man, what an absolutely killer album. Released May 17th. It's a monster album for the band. It's their 5th studio album. 5 singles were released on this one. The title track, Brothers in Arms, Your Latest Trick, a big single, Walk of Life, a big rock single, So Far Away, and then, of course, the absolutely stratospheric, enormous Money for Nothing. The album peaked at number 1, like everywhere around the world. And it's sold more than 30 million copies worldwide. More than 10 million just in the United States alone. So it's so good. This Brothers in Arms was the first album that I bought on CD, and I was, obviously I was new to CDs in 1985. CDs were fairly new to all of us back then. And I put it on the stereo and I would just crank it over and over again. And it just sounded so good. And that, I don't know. I think So Far Away is probably my favorite song on the album. It's just the groove that it has going. Money for Nothing, obviously, hands down, it's just a tremendous song, crazy lyrics, written while in an appliance store, things like that, just nuts, bananas. But So Far Away, actually, for my money, that's like my go-to on the album. But it's just a great album. And of course, that one definitely is the biggest in the Dire Straits catalog for sure. All right, what is up next? This one right here. Another great one. Mr. Welcome to the Real World. If you are unfamiliar with Mr., you've got to go check them out. Short-lived career. I think they had like 4 albums. I think the last album they released was like in 1988 or 89, something like that, which is a shame. The band was pretty much a collective of studio musicians, very much like Toto was or is. And it's their second studio album, and it's the biggest one in their catalog. It sold about 2 million copies worldwide, and it has great songs on it, great musicianship, great vocals from Richard Page, the lead singer, who I saw him perform Broken Wings 12, 13 years ago, and sounded amazing. I think he tours from time to time with Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. But absolutely amazing, great songs. Just good stuff. Of course, there were 4 singles released from the album. Broken Wings, huge number 1 hit. Kyrie, another number one hit on the album. I think the other one was Is This Love? And I think it was Black and White was the other one. But, you know, the album through and through from top to bottom, just solid, absolutely solid. If you're unfamiliar with it, go check it out. You can stream it. You already know that. So go check it out. It's worth the listen. And there's an awesome, awesome ballad on there. Just thought of it right now. It's called Run to Her. Give it a listen. Give it a listen. Good stuff. I promise. Look, if you get mad at me over any of my suggestions, or if you get mad at me over anything on the list tonight, leave it in the comments. All right. Leave it in the comments and holler at me. Let's see. Next up is this one here. From In Excess, Listen Like Thieves. Now, this is the 5th studio release and the biggest seller to that point, up to 1985. It was released on October 15th. And this one, as far as America is concerned, this is probably when the band began to really hit their stride. I think 2 albums prior, 1983, they had a minor hit. It did break the top 40. That was, darn it. It wasn't, what was it? Shoot, I forgot now. Oh, well, whatever. Doesn't matter because we're talking about 1985. But yeah, in America, the band wasn't really known that well. So this is where they really started to hit their stride. The big songs and the big videos were What You Need, and This Time, along with the title track. Those are the big songs on the album. Listen Like Thieves is a huge song for In Excess. What You Need, huge song for In Excess. Worldwide, the album has sold about 3.5 million copies. I only had the pleasure of seeing In Excess one time live, and unfortunately, it was after Michael Hutchence had passed away. I saw them in 2005, I believe it was, and that was when they had JD Fortune on lead vocals. JD did a fabulous job, great job, and in fact, the band had put out an album leading up to that tour that I had seen them on. A great album too. Good album. Everything about it was In Excess, except the fact that it wasn't Michael Hutchence. But as I said, JD Fortune did a great job. Yeah, they were, In Excess, just such a great band. Man, so good. So good. All right. Where are we? Next up. Man, I'm just like flying by. I'm just like flying through all this stuff, aren't I? Well, that's kind of good for you guys because you know me, I get going and I just talk and I talk and then I talk a little bit more. So we're kind of making this an economic episode, it looks like so far, anyway. Who knows? All right, next up, this one right here, Simple Minds, Once Upon a Time. Now, I'm sure most of you had no clue. I had no clue that this was Simple Minds' 7th studio album. This is the biggest one in their catalog, and this is the one that comes off of their number one hit, Don't You Forget About Me, that they had on the Breakfast Club soundtrack. So the name, I was familiar with the band Simple Minds, but I had no idea that there were 6 studio albums prior to this one here. I don't think I'd actually heard anything from Simple Minds until the Breakfast Club soundtrack. But that's really what put those guys on the map. And this album here is, like I said, not only it's their biggest album. It's sold over 2 million copies worldwide, and 3 singles were released from it. All 3 of those singles are dynamite songs. Alive and Kickin', man, just killer. Just a killer song. Sanctify Yourself, all the things she said. Of those 3 singles, Alive and Kickin' was the biggest of the 3. It reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. But so good. So good. Such a great album. It really is. And worth your time. Like I said, I just kind of, I think I'm getting down to the nitty gritty here, but up to this point, I just picked these albums out. Oh yeah, I remember that one. I remember that one there. It wasn't like, this one's my favorite here, so on and so. It had nothing to do with it. So I think that this list that I put together has got some absolutely dynamite albums released 40, count it, 40 years ago this year. That's just silly to think about. But go check some of these out. If some of these kind of piqued your interest a little bit, go check them out. And then when you do, again, leave comments. Leave comments, okay? We can't communicate unless you leave comments or you call in live on the live show. All right. Next one. This is actually number 14. Wow. All right. Next one. Kiss, Asylum. Now, this one I did handpick because there's no way I'm going to do a list of albums turning 40 this year and not put a Kiss album on there that was released in 1985. There's just no way it's going to happen. So, yeah, I did handpick that one. But not Animalized, that was the one before. Asylum is the 13th studio album from the band, and it's the third in a run of non-makeup era albums. It's selling, 1 million copies in the US alone. It only had one single released. That was Tears Are Falling, which is a fabulous song. That is such a good song. It, I don't know. I like it because it chugs. It's got a chugging rhythm to it. And I tend to, I don't know, for some reason, I tend to lean on a lot of songs that chug and listen to it. If you're familiar with it, but if you're not, go listen to it and you'll kind of get what I'm talking about when I say it just chugs. But Tears Are Falling, great song. It was the one song released to radio. Really didn't do anything on the chart. However, I believe it were 3 videos from the album released, big MTV videos, which Tears Are Falling is one of them. Excuse me. What else? All Night and Who Wants to Be Lonely. Those were the videos released to MTV, big videos. And I don't know, many Kiss fans. I'm not one of them, but many Kiss fans believe that Asylum is the best of the non-makeup albums. But I don't agree. That one I don't agree with. It's a great album. I do love it. I don't remember where I ranked it on my Kiss top 20 albums, but I do like the album a lot. And I don't know. I think a toss-up between my favorite songs on the album are Tears Are Falling and King of the Mountain, which is actually the opening track. And that one tears it up. That one is really, really good. So good. So check it out. If you're unfamiliar with it, go check it out. It's what you have to do. Well, like I said, we're getting down to it, and I brought this one. This one I kind of handpicked as well because last week I did start to talk about this band during the drunk show, and I was way drunk, and I did not do this band any justice in trying to talk about them. So, being 100% sober today, I'm going to talk about this band right now, and this album right here. Yeah, I didn't need to print the album cover on this one because I had it sitting right here on the shelf. The Outfield, Play Deep. It's the debut album. It was released on August the 12th. It's again the debut album from this British trio, the trio of Tony Lewis on lead vocals and bass, John Spinks on lead guitar and vocals, and Alan Jackman on drums. Um, I knew nothing about these guys, and one time I'm watching MTV. One of the many times I would spend hours watching MTV, and this video comes on. Say It Isn't So. It's the opening track on the album. It was their first release, the first single they released on the album. It's an awesome song. It might be my favorite song on the album among 10 fabulous songs. This band deserves so much more than what they got. Unfortunately, their shelf life was not long. I mean, well, they lasted for a while. They went on hiatus for a bit, especially in the 90s, coming back together late 90s, early 2000s, put together some more releases, but never were able to regain the traction that they had off of this debut album, Play Deep. John Spinks wrote all the songs. Tony Lewis, of course, sang lead on I think 9 of the 10 tracks, and I think on the second album, their second album, Bang, and I think John does lead vocals on one song. So I think he takes a lead vocal on one song on each of the albums, at least on one of the first two albums. But the second single, Your Love, that's the band's biggest song ever. It's a huge song. Every 80s compilation album that is out there contains this song. You can't go anywhere listening to any 80s music and not hear Your Love. It's a great song. Not my favorite song on the album, but it is still a great song. You know it. Josie's on a vacation far away. Come on, you guys know it. You know it. Don't make me do that. Great song, great musicianship from these guys, really, honestly. Great production. And it has just a great, crisp sound to it. The album itself does. I can't talk highly enough about these guys. You know, the unfortunate thing is the Outfield is no more. They will never, ever be again because sadly, John Spinks passed away. I think it was about 2014. He had, I think, liver cancer. And then mysteriously, I don't want to say mysteriously, it was just never divulged. Tony Lewis, he passed away in 2020, I think it was late 2020, somewhere around there, 2019, 2020, 2021, somewhere right around there. Might have been 2021. And it was never disclosed as far as what his cause of death was. So I don't think it was anything foul play or anything like that. It's just mysterious. Nobody knows. So that's unfortunate because these guys, I absolutely love these guys. I had the opportunity, the pleasure, the privilege to see them perform live one time, and it was an absolutely dynamite show. Killer show, sounding so good. And this album itself, it holds a special place in my heart. It is that good. If you only know the outfield for Your Love, or Josie, as everybody calls it, then go check it out. Yeah, just go check it out. It is just so good. When you have lyrics like 61 seconds is all it takes for the 9 to 5 man to be only 1 minute late. Come on. Come on. Who does that? It's so good. It's so good. And, as I said, they had 3 singles. The first 2, Say It Isn't So, Your Love, or Josie, right? And then I think All the Love, or All the Love. Like the long title of it is All the Love in the World, but the song is just titled All the Love. Good stuff. Absolutely good stuff. Just dynamite. So check it out. I'll leave you with that. Yeah, I did leave the outfield for last on purpose, because last week trying to talk about them while inebriated was unfair. I actually listened back to the show, and I'm not going to go long on this because we've got more business to tend to in a little bit after this episode's up. But man, to watch yourself drunk, man, that was not good. And shame on me. In my mind, I kept saying Tony Lewis, but I know I said Tony Spinks like 3 times. But in my head, I was trying to be cognizant of it, and I kept saying Tony Lewis. Tony Spinks, and in my head I was saying Tony Lewis. So just a dummy. Anyway, so I guess just really quick, I'll run them down just real fast. The album's turning 40 this year, and go check them out. Go if you're not familiar with them, go check them out. Good stuff. We'll run them down real fast. Motley Crue's Theater of Pain, Aerosmith, Done with Mirrors, Phil Collins' ginormous album, No Jacket Required, Heart, the self-titled 1985 album, Heart. Big stuff. John Fogerty, Center Field. Another huge album right here. John Cougar Mellencamp, Scarecrow. Great 80s hard rock from Rat, Invasion of Your Privacy. I think I'm skipping past Dream of the Blue Turtles by Sting. I'm going to mention it because he deserves a mention, but I forgot to print the album cover. AC/DC Fly on the Wall. Another absolutely ginormous album, Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms. Great, great, great album. Fabulous. Mr. Mister, Welcome to the Real World. Check it out. Good stuff. Oh, good. So good. In Excess, Listen Like Thieves. Simple Minds, Once Upon a Time. Kiss, Asylum. Another great album. It truly is. It really is. Great Kiss album. And then last but not least, The Outfield, Play Deep. Dynamite album. And really turned into a great list of albums here. All 15. Really just turned into a great list. So I didn't mean it to happen that way, but it did. I'm glad it did. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for spending some time. I hope that you will go and seek out and give a listen to some of these albums, if not all of them, if you're not familiar with them. So we're done. It's a wrap here, people. As you know, this program is available wherever you stream your podcasts. It's on all of the streaming platforms. Just search the Ben Maynard program on your favorite streaming platform, and it's there. All right. And it's there. But if you're watching on YouTube right here because you love this right here, or maybe you even love this guy, I don't know. Maybe you love us both. Who knows? Thank you for watching. And just please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Tell 10,000 of your family and friends to check the show out. Subscribe to the channel as well. All right. If you tell 10,000 of your family and friends, I'll hit 500 subscribers, no problem, by the end of the year. Okay. So just do that, but also give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. Last but not least, follow me on Instagram, simply Ben Maynard Program. With that, we're done. It's over. All right. This is the Ben Maynard Program. Tell a friend.